In this chapter so far, we have created HTML5 containers. Now, they don't look like much, but understand something. Dreamweaver, HTML5, whatever you want to call it, doesn't make assumptions. It can't look at things and say, well, obviously that's a placeholder for an image, so I got to make it so big. We have to decide everything. This is where it comes together. Now, over here, I have CSS Designer because I am in the default workspace, and I want you to be there. I'm going to pull this out, just like that. And I'm going to pull it down. I want all the space I can get. Go big or go home. Sources. See that at the top. Media, selectors, properties. This is the CSS Designer panel. This is where it all happens. This is where you get your control. Now, the first thing we have to do is define a source. Okay, so we click up here. You have three options. Do you want to create a new CSS file? We will do that, but not in this lesson. Do you want to attach one? If we had a CSS file that defined image title, image selection, image placeholder, and image footer, one click of a button, this would be done. We'd have it formatted. For this one, we're going to put the document CSS inside of the actual document we're working with. So the control of it is being controlled by the page. Don't usually do that, but let's not get too complicated yet. Let's start with small steps. So I'm going to go down here and say define in page. And there it is right here, style. Now we don't need media yet, but we need selectors. Selectors are what defines how each one of those content areas is put together. Now the first thing I want to do is define the width, but you have to understand something. Image title, in a sense, is on its own. Image section, along with the placeholders, are together, and the footer is on its own. So if I want to define the width of a page, and I do, to say 800, I'm going to have to do it 3 times if I want to do it this way. But we have one more container that overrides everything if we want to use it, and that's this one right here, the body. If we define something on the body, everything inside the body goes to the definition. Get it? Okay, let's do this. I want you to go into selectors and click the plus sign. Say, well, hey, wow, that's cool. It actually put body in there. It read my mind. No, I had it selected down here. That's going to save you a ton of time. Actually, a literal ton, 2,000 pounds of time. So we have body. Now watch what happens when I click off of it to set it and click back on. If we go into properties, we can see only the properties that we have set, which we haven't done yet. So we're going to turn off show set right here, and you get everything. I want the width of this page to be 800 pixels. I want everything on it to be 800. So all I have to do with body is come into width right here. I'm going to go into pixels, px, change that to 800. Press the tab key. Now if I move this for a second, you can see everything went to 800 pixels. Now before, that line right there went all the way over to here. We don't have that problem. We have now an 800 pixel width definition, and everything inside there goes to 800. Now what about the other ones? Well, we have title, we have image section, placeholders, and the image footer. So what we need to do now is define those. For example, let's go into the image section. We have image placeholders. Based on the images that we have, they are 220 pixels wide by 400 pixels tall. Well, lighthouses are thin and tall, right? So I need each one of the image placeholders to be 220 by 400. So again, to save time, so I don't have to type it in, I'm going to come over here and say click on one of the image placeholders. Since they all have the same name, it doesn't matter which one you click on. Come over here and click a new selector. Notice what it did. It gave me the path. I don't want to type that in. You could, but I don't want to type it in. So to save you time, okay, to save you time, don't forget, click on them, and then come over here and click the plus sign. So you click out of it to set it, click it again. In width, right here, what I want to do is go into pixels, and I want 220. Now watch what happens. They all go to 220, because since I'm using a selector on something that's nested inside a body that overrides body, these go to 220. That's the power of cascading style sheets. But I also need them to be 400 in terms of height. So I'll come back down here again, and I get in here for pixels and type in 400. Problem. The problem is they're on top of each other, one after another. I hate it when that happens. So why did that happen? Well, you have to understand, again, that nothing is assumed. If I scroll down here a little bit more, you'll see an area called float. Now, we are in a none-float condition. What does that mean? That means if one container sees another container, it won't put it to the right of it, even though there's plenty of room. It'll put it below it. So what we have to do in placeholder, which we have selected, is change the float to either left or right. I'm going left. Now watch what happens. There they are. But you'll notice also the footer came up there too. We'll talk about that later. Everything floats from that point down until you change something. But I've got them where I want them to be with one problem, is they're kind of over on the left. And so I've got some room over here where I don't want the footer. Each one of those containers is 220 pixels wide. We have a box that's 800 pixels wide. 220 times 3 is 660. If you subtract 660 from 800, that gives you 140. If you divide 140 equally 4 times, that's 35 pixels. I want 35 pixels here, 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 and here. How do I do that? Let's come back up this way and get into margins. Now, if I click here and type in 35, watch what happens. They perfectly spread out because I did the math correctly. And now we have some nice space between each one. Now, footer has been pushed back down, but that doesn't mean it's not going to cause problems. We'll talk about that later. I kind of like what I see so far. I'm happy with that. And I think I would also like some space between the title at the top and the footer at the bottom. So if I come in here and go to the top and say, give me 35 up there. And on the bottom, give me 35 here. And you can see if we move down, we have that space. Now understand the words, content for ID, image section goes here. Content for ID, image placeholder goes here. We don't need that text. The only reason it's there is to let us know what that box is. I don't need anything in image section except those images. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click and I'm going to select all of that text, just like that, and delete it. Now it will push up because the text is no longer there. I don't need this text. That's for an image. Triple click, delete. And you can do it down here too if you wanted to. Now let me go into design mode and we can kind of see what we've got so far. We have content ID image title. That's where our title is going to go. We have an image for that. We're going to add navigation later. We have 3 areas that we can place images in, and we have a footer at the bottom. All through the process of working with HTML5 and CSS and the CSS Designer panel. And we're just getting started. So tell you what, let's go up to the word File on the pull-down menu and click Save. Got to save this good stuff.